executive session, Councilman Woods made the motion, and I think Councilman Steen seconded it, and unanimously, we're going to come out of executive session. Councilman Woods, would you lead us in the invocation?
Oh, most graceful and heavenly Father, once again, you allow us to assemble together, Lord. Father, we thank you, Lord, for life, health, and strength. Father, we go forward in this meeting, Lord. Let our mind come together and make Marlboro County a better place. Father, at this time also, Lord, as you strengthen the Strowman family, Lord, and they lost a loved one, Lord, and people they changed and been broken. Father, give them the strength, Lord, to amend their change, Lord, and they move forward. Heavenly Father, these and all blessed in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Another point that there was no decisions made and nothing to vote on out of executive session. Approval of agenda items. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second? Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Okay. Approval of minutes.
Should I make a motion we approve minutes as recorded?
Second. All right. All in favor?
I was absent.
Moving down to old business, ordinance 827, an ordinance to adopt the annual budget and to make appropriations for Marlboro County for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. First reading, second reading. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, the workshop kind of got caught up in legal and contractual matters, so this was what was going to be in that. So everyone who missed that gets to see this. And I will try to run through it and get to the important part quickly. Once I figure out how to make this work. Okay. One thing before we get, the main focus of the budget is usually the general fund. That's what we've been talking about. But we do have other funds like the Rural Fire Fund, and I wanted to give you an update from last time. Currently, that fund's bringing in $100,000 to $125,000 more a year than the expenses. And that money has to be used for rural fire. It can't be transferred into the general fund. It has to go to rural fire. There's been discussion, over the last couple of years about making sure we have a clear plan on how to spend that money. Don't just write everybody a check. To use that money for something that's very defined. And so staff went and met with the fire committee. Councilman Steen went as well. He's a fire guy. And from that conversation and that meeting, which was very good, there is a joint recommendation from that committee and from staff. And that is that the amount paid per call. So if you're a volunteer fireman and you go on a call, right now you get $15 for that call. And with fuel going up and all of that and the need to retain the volunteers, the request is to increase that to $17 a call, which is in line with the counties around us and the other areas around here. The other recommendation is that the other parts of that additional revenue be used to pay for each fire department's insurance, the workers' comp, the building, their liability. They pay for that on their own now. They're not on the counties, which we're going to look into that too, but right now they pay their own. And it ranges anywhere from $10,000 or $12,000 a year to $16,000 a year. So that's the other recommendation. Also, that depending on how much of that 125 is left after doing these things, look at paying the fuel bill for these fire departments. And one thing that would be good for that is they can be put on the county's same system where they got a card and they can go get fuel at any place in the county that will take that card, which is anywhere. It's like a credit card. Again, we got to make sure we're still fine-tuning it to make sure the money's there to do that. So this is prioritized, actually. Now, all of these things, the request is that, what we want to move forward with in the budget for y'all to vote on is doing these things as long as we use it within that additional revenue. So this is,
yes, sir, for a second. The revenue for reimbursement fuel, that's for the fire truck itself and all they services. Okay.
Yeah, the money per call, that's what
it
it is. You got And really that money per call is help keep people involved and retained, because it does help cover their expenses. So this is just point information. I gave y'all printed out a copy of the thing, and I can answer any other questions. If not, we'll just move forward and get it in the budget. Okay. And then, anything else we can do together to save money, they're all for that. So if there's things they can buy as one instead of separately, they're all up for that, and that's a good thing. It's good to be.
Are there any questions for Mr. Rowe?
I went to those things in the early '90s, and they weren't good. They would tear you up. It's a different crowd. They're the same generation as I am, and so we had a good meeting. Okay, so getting into the general fund budget, which is the important part of this. I wanted to first make sure and remind everyone, and anyone that's listening or watching here or on the Facebook, that the trash roll cart service contract is up this year. So you have to look at that. And it does have an increase, which is no shock to anybody who's paying for gas right now or hiring people to work. And there were options. So staff is recommending a 3-year renewal that sets that price and fixes it. And, and there's some, Mr. Odom made a point in conversation that, there's some indicators that the economy is not going to rebound real quickly, inflation-wise. So we recommend doing that. But, if you'll note that there is an increase per residence. Staff worked pretty hard, Ms. Carbo led this, to keep the increase down as much as possible with the homestead residences. The folks over 65, disabled, those folks, let's see that go from 167 to go from 170 to 185. For the other residences, it would go from 205 to 235. The other important thing to note here is that if you look in the first column under current, you'll see that we're using $200,000 of tax money to subsidize this. So property tax revenue is being used to cover the difference for doing this. And under this recommendation, you wouldn't do that anymore. So it frees up that $200,000 to handle other expenses that you know about and will go through. So this is what we're building the budget. Any questions about that?
That went up, really looking at the homestead, fixed income people, so it would go up really $15 county charge where we are now.
It'd be 15 on homestead and 20 on, is that right?
30.
30 on non-homestead.
And no fee to dump at the convenience center. Correct. That's pretty much in no fee to.
So if you're a county citizen and you want to go not commercial or not a contractor, and you want to go dump at our convenience centers, we won't be trying to collect money from it.
Yeah, we still would charge for construction debris. So if you're a contractor or somebody,
What do we charge like extra now?
it's it ends up being $50 a ton.
No, I mean like if we now we charge you convenience center. How much is it?
It's $50 a ton. So if you got whatever you bring, if it's a trailer load or a truckload, it's usually $13, $15, something like that.
Okay.
And Mr. King, that never works out. So where that's come from and subsidized out of that $200,000 come out of it. Right. Okay. Okay. So to try to follow the same path we typically do, we start off with this. And this shows where we left last meeting with the mandatory expenses and the items that are unavoidable added into the budget, and the revenue growth that's been seen added into the budget. So we start off at this point. By doing the roll cart thing, it will eliminate another $200,000 in cost, because to take it from the general fund and put it over there in solid waste is like the expense. So it eliminates that. One thing that we took the liberty of doing was putting the cost of living increase for all employees of 2% back into the general fund budget. We can take that out, but that's very important to keep that progress we've been making, to keep taking care of employees who are seeing incredible inflation in this year to come. So that is in there. So if you do all that, then you end up at a point where you're at 490 out of the reserve, using out of the reserve amounts. Now, if you remember last time, we talked about the fact that in the past 4 or 5 years, you budgeted about $450,000 out of reserve. And because you've had vacancies, a lot of vacancies and jobs, you save that money during the year, and it usually comes out breaking even, or maybe $100,000 up or down. 450 is kind of the sweet spot there. But, as you make moves to improve benefits and salaries and the things, the tools people work with, you're going to see fewer vacancies. And so we feel like the target now is around 350. And just with the stuff we showed you a minute ago, with the cost of living and the mandatory increases that you can't avoid, like retirement contributions, insurance, that kind of thing, there's a need for a 2 mil tax increase just to cover those expenses. Now, something that we have to be reminded of is that the state legislature passed an act called Act 388 a number of years ago that sets a cap on how much local government can increase taxes. It's a law. There are some exceptions. If you had some catastrophic event happen, or you lost 20% of your workforce in a 6-month period, that's or your jobs in a 6-month period, things like that. But in normal operation, as we're in, they have a maximum amount they send out every year. And you can see down at the very bottom for each year, it gives us a percentage that you can go up, a percentage of the millage you already have in place. So if you don't use one of those years, you can roll it up, but you can look back 3 years. So right now where you are, you haven't increased it in 3 years. And in fact, last year, you actually decreased it because you had to true up with the reevaluation of the property in the county, which is the right thing to do. So right now you're sitting on the, you could legally increase taxes by 8.5 tax mills. Now, one of the reasons I printed it out for y'all, as you can see on this page, a little chart that lets you look at how many dollars would go up for each 1 mil of taxes you go up. So a $50,000 legal residence would go up $2 for every bill, and so on. Another thing to note on the left-hand side is that those of you who've been on the council, well, we've all been on council now for at least a year or two, we always work off the assumption that a tax mill was worth $60,000. And now with changes and growth in the county, believe it or not, we feel like that's $65,000. That's being optimistic, but we're being conservatively optimistic. So that kind of lays the ground for where we are, and what y'all, what decisions council needs to consider in order to move forward with the budget. So what I'm going to do is, last time we were here, we had all these budget requests on the thing. Sheriff was here, we went through them all. And a lot of them has to do with the sheriff's department because he's making changes and doing things. And he and I met yesterday, and there are a couple of things that have changed to the better, to the good. And so I'm going to do it one line at a time. And Sheriff, please interrupt me if I misstate something. So the first one is the request for 5 additional deputy positions with benefits. So that's the first one. The second one is the request for 5 additional detention center options. However, the sheriff is actively pursuing an agreement where he can house federal inmates in the county detention center, and in return will be paid by the federal government. And if that arrangement works out, then that revenue should cover the expenses. So instead of muddying the water on trying to figure out the budget, we just sit that aside for that. Because I think I can accurately say that if the money's not come in, then there's no interest in spending the money. It's got to be a give and take.
It will be a give and take, and if it goes through, we're in a process of trying to get the application completed, and we don't see why we won't be able to get the application completed or that we're able to house those inmates. If there's a difference in where we're getting the number of inmates that we're looking at, right now we're looking at 16 inmates. We do have a pod that we've already identified that we can place all 16 inmates in. And that number can change from 16 to 32 to 50. And for every change there's almost double the increase in how much income or revenue would be able to be in based on the number of inmates that we get in. We're roughly looking at anywhere from $50 to $60 per diem per inmate. So you can do the math. Let's say at 16 inmates times 30 a year, times 60 a year, you can see what that would come to.
So will the federal inmate come in, or they there for specific amount of time?
They could be there anywhere from a month to a year. But not normally more, my understanding, they won't be there more than a year. It's kind of like phasing out, and then obviously they'll replace another.
Okay, so obviously that's got to break even, and the intent is to do better than break even. So that can kind of come out of this discussion. Additional computers for the sheriff's department, we feel like the staff, with other needs we have for computers, we can handle that within some other sources, so we took that out. There was a need for a transport van, still is, but either can make some arrangements to find another source, or if you do the federal deal, then, you know, roll right in there. So originally the request was for 7 new vehicles for the sheriff's department, and that's the least amount. But after talking with the sheriff, he suggested that that number of new vehicles be tied to the number of new deputies, because he's got some decent spares. He can make do in a tough financial year. The request to increase the base salary of detention center officers, that's to be competitive and attract people and retain
It
them.
is, I mean, if you've been down 15401 lately, you may see a sign up from Florence County saying that they're looking for deputies and other employees. We can't compete with that. That number starts out at 45,000 for Florence. And now we're having a complete peak with Florence, and everybody in Marlboro County is riding by looking at that sign. And it makes it difficult for us. So we have to do what we can do, and this helps. Anything that we can do now will help. If there's a good side to that, at least they feel like there's somebody in Marlboro County worthy of going to work in Florence, if that says anything. So we have to figure out what we can do in some way to keep it. If not, we're going to be right back at square one all over again with everybody going to another county.
Okay, we have that. Bulletproof vest, that's a need that has to happen. If he's seeking grant funding, it may be something we can handle in this year. We're closing out now, so we took the chance of taking that out.
And that is reimbursement. We will be reimbursed.
There was a request to have some salary bumps so he can create, a path for folks to advance and have advancement in a corporal position. So that amounts to it. It's not very much. We had originally asked for had put in the request for a weather siren warning system, like they have sometimes out west. And that's just something that this year we can't swing. We talked with Steve Akers, who had put it in. He'll seek funding from other sources occasionally. Not a bad idea, but in a year that's tough, you can wait. And then the tax assessor's office had asked for $110,000 for field assessors that go out and do that work, and that's a need. But I'm suggesting that we cut that in half. It's one of the things you can say, well, we can't do it this year, but it's something that helps you have an accurate amount of money coming in. You know what's coming in, you have an accurate tax base. It's part of the thing that brings the tax money in, and so I think it's worth considering. And so when I get to that point, then I get to the magic sheet that looks like a Christmas tree, and I'm going to go off of this into the Christmas tree. Something you want to see it. Get back up. Sometimes it looks like deep booties. Okay. I know that's sort of small. I hope everybody can see it. So this is, if you look at the bottom pink part, these are the things we just went over. So what I did for the sake of discussion was moved all the request amounts over into the column that says amount included. So it adds it all up. And you can see that all of those added together are about $437,000. If you approve all of those requests, have the amounts in there, and if you raise taxes the maximum amount, which is 8.5 mils, you would spend $375,000 out of the reserve. Now remember, we're suggesting a target of 350. 375 is not that far off of that. But this would require the maximum tax increase available to you to accomplish that. This is kind of where we are, you know, where staff is, where there's a point where we need council direction to go to the next step for the third reading. So I'm trying to answer your questions. I can do scenarios. If you want to ask me to enter something that will change when I enter it, whatever you're comfortable with doing.
Ron, in past millage increases, of course, I know for 2 years we hadn't raised any millage rate. We're down actually last year. And but by maxing out the tax millage rate 8.5, say we have an emergency next year or something comes up, we're pretty much locked out that we can't go in. Well, an emergency I know would be different, but say something did come up and we needed to do a tax millage increase next year. Excuse me, if we lock out the whole 8.5 mil, then we're pretty much locked out from going up.
Well, each year they give you a new amount.
Huh?
Each year they give you a new amount. So next year you may have it. Now, in the past, it's been 1.2, 1. It's never been this high, which is interesting because that 4.7 you see is because the inflation is going up. But you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what they're going to give next year. But you would at least, you wouldn't be able to go back 3 years. You would, depending on what comes at you.
And the only other thing I want to say while we're on this is right now, the people in this county and all over the country, they are getting hammered with inflation, on high increases in drugs, prescriptions. Gas is back over $4 again. And if you listen to the experts for the economy, and I try, I don't know about the experts, but I try and listen to what they say. This economy may not be at the bottom yet. There's a chance that this economy could move south, and that's going to hurt the people in this county and everywhere else a lot more.
Is that with the 2 mil tax increase that you said we needed to start with?
Yes. That includes one line that's not showing the cost of living.
Okay, I didn't see it, that's what.
Plus everything else. That's a good point.
So at 8.5 mil increase and the average, this is mathematically speaking, the average home is $100,000. The tax go up
About 37, $38.
$30.
So it'd go up 8.5 times $4. Mr. Park usually can do math in his head, so over $30 on a legal residence. On a business or whatever, it might be $6 per. Would be.
And that's per meal, right?
Yeah, so that's per meal. You just multiply it times whatever you're going, whatever you're doing.
$34 on a homestead house, $100,000.
But then keep in mind, the homestead taxes automatically get a $50,000 break. So if you have a $100,000 homestead house, you don't want to be billed on 50. Again, I mean, this may be another work session, I don't know, but if this gives you something to work with.
Sheriff, and how confident are you, given what you have already been approached or engaged with?
I'm confident that once the application is completed, I think we can meet our criteria. If we meet that criteria, and I think we will, then I'm confident that that will happen.
And what's the bottom number, the extreme number that you think that resident, I'm saying if let's say all budget items were approved and
we get, if we did $60, if we rounded off to $60 per inmate, that'll be 60 times 16, I'll take that 7, 6, 3, 6, 9, that'll be $900,000.
so that's way above what?
Yeah, and all the money,
And that's a year.
that's a year from now on for the Marlboro payments. I think I did that right.
60.
60 times, is it 60?
Yeah, 60 times, how many,
60 times 16.
and that's each day?
That's 60, yeah, that's a day. Yeah, that's $60.
That's 60.
That's $60 per day.
Yeah, 960, and then if you multiply it by 360, it will probably be about it's gonna be less than 350.
Yeah.
It's $350,000 a year.
And so it's around 350,000, so it will cover everything we're doing. Just keep in mind, that money will not, it can come to the sheriff's, to the detention center, but we're not. We're gonna make sure that it all goes straight to general funds. We're not asking for anything but to make sure that our needs are met where we are. Now, if that increases to 32 inmates or 50 inmates, then you're talking about doubling the amount of money. Right now, we're averaging about 40 inmates now, around 30 to 40 inmates. We house 96 inmates. And if we're averaging 40 and we can get 50, that number almost triples.
So I guess we kind of took that line out as far as, we call it a wash, but if, you would have to have those 5 new inmates, those 5 new detention center officers would be designated strictly for?
No, they'll just be a part of the entire, there won't be any specific employees or staff for those inmates. Everything will just run as normal, they'll just be housed as any other inmate.
But you'd have to have that number of employees.
I like that, I'm not gonna sit and tell you I have to have it. That would be
I don't know
true.
if there's a federal.
But I will tell you that we're short now. Even with 22 staff members, you're pretty short. When you think about how many people that you have working at 22, you're only working 3 or 4 people a night or a day. If something jumps off in there and you had to move all those inmates out should something happen, you've got 5 people trying to control 40 inmates that don't want to be in jail. Those are other things that I don't think people realize what could happen. If there's a fire, you got to get everybody out.
Now, we are going to handle the detention center completely separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we can keep that separate.
Well, I'm standing here kind of listening to everybody. I think what Dr. Johnson's saying is are you going to make money that could go towards other businesses? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, the money goes into all the money that comes into from that will go straight to the general fund. It will not come to the sheriff's office, nor will it come to the detention center. It goes to general fund to be used however it's needed.
I think in the first year, I probably.
Yeah, it's gonna be a wash.
Yeah, I think probably make a wash. And Sheriff and his crowd are working with Wes and me. We're working to make sure we capture every expense that's related because he's going to go negotiate with the feds and make sure we get enough money.
That's good. And there are numerous, obviously there's numerous detention centers now. I mean, Dillon is doing it, Darlington, Chesterfield was, but they're about to start back. Darlington does it. Most of them do it because it's a source of revenue, but it also helps everybody. It helps the feds with their housing. Right now, the last conversation I had there, I had 450 inmates in Charlotte that they're trying to find someplace to put them. And now I know that there's another institution in South Carolina that they have more inmates, but they have to move. And so, to answer your question, will they stay there long? No, most of these inmates are on their way out. They're kind of phasing out of the system itself.
But there's always somebody rolling.
There's always, you'll keep the number. The number will stay.
So, back to where we were is, I think several good questions, is there enough money extra to try to cover these other things? And I think the other look at it is, do you make that first year where you're trying to figure out what's happening? And hopefully the next year you've got some revenue there to help cover things. As Sheriff Neal says, the other counties doing it, it's working well.
Everybody, most counties are.
But all that's out of this. For this, all that's out, because we know it's, I feel sure he's not gonna wanna do it if it's not gonna pay for itself. That's the whole thing. So we're gonna set that aside.
So we'll go back up to 5 new deputies. So, I just did some numbers real quickly. If you said the federal inmates would come in about 350. Yeah, I'm just throw some numbers out. You got a 225 for detention officers. That shows you about 125. I'm just give or take. And so if we said that was a number, I was looking at the 5 deputies. If that number, just say in 2023, 24, showed a $125,000 increase, that would take care of about 2.5. I call them 2.5 deputies. So if that was, ideal scenario, if you had just, we're gonna have to get bare bones. If you added 2 deputies and 2 cars for a year. I know your plan is where you want to go. I'm just looking at money-wise. You told us you planned 5 in every area, so we're just trying to get a number that feels comfortable with, people on that fixed income. And believe you me, my brother, he is a deputy, so I hear the urgency, and I hear the danger in it. So sitting around the kitchen table at Mama's Day ain't the best place to hear that conversation, but we've had it. So if you just had a number of 2 deputies, 2 patrol cars, what would that number look like for tax mill increase? Could you? Or 3. At least give us.
Let's look at 3 as opposed to 2.
Or just a start number. Yeah, just give us a start number. Yeah, the reason I said, whenever I did a number of 125, I just took it off to 1660, 350, half of 260 was about 130, so they give you 2.5. I just said 2. I'm just throwing numbers out there. So if you did 3, you can get a start with 3.
So each one deputy, you can multiply it up as $52,000. So
it's how much?
$52,000. So if you did 3, you go to the sheriff here,
156.
and then you go down here and you do. Wes has already done this in his head.
So that's 3 is 21.
Divided by 5.
That'd be 21.
Yeah, something like that. Excuse me a second. Excuse me, mathematician. It's gonna be 19,200. Okay, so that's where you are with 3. So, and 8.5 tax mills. So that takes you about $100,000 below your target of your reserve. So it gives you. You want to look at
taking
the tax increase based on.
That's the way.
So
I guess that's kind of where we want to go with it.
I'm just throwing numbers. So that was a 1.5 mil reduction if you did it that way. And then just so everybody note that, and then I'm going to do the 2. Council. That's obviously it's 4. So that's 2. So that's 6. So 7 mils or 6 mils, 3 or 2, I guess is the way to look at it.
Then we want to be between 350 to 400, 350, 375 for.
We feel we need to be more careful with that float because he is doing things to keep people and get good people.
Yeah.
They're not going to be a bunch of vacancies.
That's still with the increase to the corporal position, is that correct?
That's a compensation adjustment for all detention center employees, $3,000 each. That's the corporal thing, which is really a significant amount, $10,200. And that's half of what tax assessor asked for to go out and do field stuff.
I can't see it with an on, I can't see it with a off, so I was looking.
What number there? I can't see you.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Oh, it's about right.
363, 363 buffer.
Yeah, I can't see it with my own world, so 263, that's bad.
363.
Okay.
And 363, 245 to be exact.
Okay. Well, I thought we were good.
And that with 2 officers?
That's it.
Is that
That's
the
with
immediate office? You got two.
No, with 2.
That was two.
That one with 2,
Okay.
with 6 mil increase. The other one was 3 with 7 mil.
That's 2 and 2 cars, right?
And that's the cars equal to deputies.
Yeah.
That's the way to look at it.
So that's still with the bringing up the ones that's there now. I'm just trying to go back, refresh. The detention center officers now, that would bring them up for a little bit. Detention center officers in there, correct? And then the corporal slots would be in there too.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
You got to add 2 meals back for the cost of living, right?
That's it. That's in that number. That would cover the cost of living increase for all employees, including the sheriff's department and detention center, and what either 3 or 2, depending on how we change And again, I mean, can you take it under advisement, we can look at it again, but I think it's clear you see where, you see how it moves and shakes when you change.
I really don't feel comfortable with the two scenario. We're asking for 5 and then we just have 2. That's, obviously, for me.
Put 3 back up on and see what that,
It's about $13,000.
4 or 5. That's just
It's
it.
roughly $13,000 in that amount. It's
The
350.
additional amount.
Yeah.
19.2. So to get that down to around 350, then it's gonna take 7.
I just think it's still too high on the meals.
What is that?
I'd like to come down on the meals a little bit. I mean, it's too much to at one time put on the citizens. I want to do everything we can. I'd like to give them 3 deputies and see if we can cut something else somewhere to do something, because I just don't want to put that much on the citizens at one time. I mean, and we still got to take out $356,000 out of our reserve. So that's, if we want to take out a reserve, it'd be all right. But we got to be reasonable about it. I mean, people can't stand for so much. I mean, they have the time. And I want to have everything we can do. I do. I want to do that. But I sure want to see it less meals than that.
Well, I mean, again, the easy way of looking at it is every bill is $65,000. That's the easiest way. When you look at it, where can I find a bill? $65,000.
But we, for the last 2 or 3 years, we have not done any increases. Any.
Tax increase. Yes, sir.
So it's not like we're putting an undue burden. We may be catching up. And on some stuff. We're not
We've
putting
had some bad times, and we still have some bad times too, though.
Can I make a suggestion? If everything goes the way we hope it goes, and we can get this application done, and it is accepted, then can't you go back next year like you did this year and reduce the millage if we have the reserve coming in?
Not reduced, that's the thing that.
And I'm asking.
We need to do it different. We need to do a little bit less and then go up again if we had to. That's the way to be fair with the citizens to do it. I mean, we just need to go up just what we got to. Then if we need to go up again next year, let's do it. Let's do it.
Oh, no, I'm talking about going back.
Yeah, but it don't ever go back. I mean,
We've been hearing this.
it don't ever go
Well, let me offer sort of the same thing but different to you.
back.
All right.
If Sheriff deal goes out and he gets federal inmate deal worked out, and, we make sure we all got how much it's gonna cost, and he goes and gets the right amount, and you're sitting here 6 months into the year, and it's gangbusters. You can't do a budget amendment because you'd be using the extra revenue from that to pay for the deputies, not a tax increase. And that's what Dr. Johnson was saying. If you come in and
I'm all for that.
you come in and it's bringing in $100,000 or whatever, bringing $156,000 more than you need to cover the cost of jail, then you could come to council, or council could say, okay, let's meet, can we hire some more deputies, can we use that money to hire more deputies? You can go about that route.
If we're under the assumption that a lot of our reserve is really, from the sheriff department being lacking for such, and like I said, we know that the target is $350,000. But if we increase that to $400,000, now we can lower the millage. So now, and then if we bring in that other revenue, then we can catch up on that end instead of catching up back with the citizens.
Right, and I totally agree that I think that's the way we need to look at it and see what we can get that down to, the millage, because people are,
You're saying they're throwing another 65,000 out of the reserve? Is that what you're saying?
right. No,
Something like that.
Something like that, whatever that number would be, comfortable number would be out of the reserve. Right, that's still, we're not in pushing the line all the way, but we're responsive to, because my thing, I'm looking at the liability that we would be in if something happens in this county and we could have done something, and then we're gonna pay on the back end way more than what, we're looking at for right here.
Right.
Because there are areas in this county right now, as a powder keg for something bad to happen, that's gonna bring this county all the way down. There's a lot of, you talk to the citizen and you go to some of these areas, we're only one instance away from something drastically happening that's gonna turn the tide from this county, and they're gonna look at, all of the things, and if we can do something about it right now to at least address it, I think it's beneficial to us, especially when we know that the sheriff department is actively working on bringing in revenue to the county.
Right, that's right. So, and I think that we should try to do everything we can, and if that works with bringing in the extra people at the detention center, then everything would be, if we knew that right now, then, I say that's more of a reason not to go up on the tax people with the meals. That hopefully we can keep it as long as we can and do as much as we can, and that's trying to help everybody. And that's all I want to do, is be fair as I can with everybody, even the employees too, with the county. So the meals, I just want to see us keep them as low as we can for the people, even if we have to go up again next year.
Well, the bottom line is, we face this thing, and we've only been here 2 terms, but Anthony and Jason and Mr. Black, we face this thing every year, because we've always been running 5 to 7 deputies short because of going to the city. I suppose I understand most of the cities pay a little bit more maybe than the county, but anyway, we're always operating with a minus 5 to 7 deputies, so we're always facing that. We've got to put deputies on. But we've had requests in the past, or in the past 6 years that I've been on here, I think every time for 5 deputies, and Jason, we've had to work that number down, something that the budget would stand and not be, and that was when times were good. We'd have to cut that number down, and granted, we want to do everything we can. We want to get the new car for a new deputy or whatever, or two cars and 2 deputies. But we also got to be cognizant of the taxpayers. And granted, we want them to be protected, but we also can't hammer them. And right now, we're facing a situation that everybody's in terrible shape, and we do not know what the future down the road of 6 months to a year from now is going to hold. So I agree. I think we need to help the sheriff department as much as we can, but we really need to look at the numbers, and there may be some compromise that we have to do right now.
What positions do we have vacant in the sheriff's department?
Right now, we've been fortunate enough to fill up, we only have 2 vacancies in investigations. I think we just filled the last patrol. And I understand everything that everybody's saying, but I'm gonna say this. If one of y'all call and ask for a deputy right now, you're gonna expect them to show up. If each one of y'all call a deputy, you're gonna expect them to show up. And when you got 3 people working, and you just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 calls for deputies, please keep in mind, they aren't machines either. They aren't cars, they aren't guns, they aren't handcuffs, they are people. And when you put that much stress on a man or a woman after a period of time, guess what you don't have? You don't have anybody to respond to your calls because they're somewhere sick in a hospital, drunk, or somewhere sick because they're wore out. And see, I think we keep thinking, and I don't mean any harm to anybody, but they aren't machines. They are human beings, just like everybody else. That goes to everybody's house with every problem and every situation they got. And they have to deal with that. They have to go home and deal with that. They have to sleep at night knowing that somebody just got killed or somebody just got shot. And guess what they have to do the next morning when they wake up? They have to go back to work again and do that all over again. None of you have ever experienced that. I doubt it seriously. I've experienced it for 46 years. I've seen people go through PTSD because they have to go over and over and over the same thing. But the only thing most people see is the police. That police eat, breathes and sleeps just like everybody in this room. Most people won't do it. You're expected to do it, and I'm not complaining about the salary. I'm concerned about their health as well. You drive a car on them if it quits.
Sheriff, how many deputies are we working now?
9, no. I can tell you 4 times 3 is 12, 15. 15.
How many do you have
I'm
tonight?
saying,
Tonight.
how many deputies on night?
Certified tonight.
3 or 4. 4. I'm working 4 at night now.
We've operated for years for 2, because I sit there and listen to the standard Jason has. We've operated for several years with only 2 deputies and stuff. And I know that's in the past. And I know things are a little bit different.
I would never have done that. I don't care when it was, 50 years ago. It's not safe. I mean, it's just not, I don't mean no harm. That's just not safe. Again, see a person. Forget about the police. Just see a person doing that. See you going to somebody's house every day and every night. See a person, a real human being that breathes, that bleeds. Change places with me, see how many days you'll go. How many calls will you go on?
I got a brother that goes on those calls every day. He's been doing it for so. I mean, whenever I sit up here on this side, whenever I told you it ain't an easy conversation having around a Mother's Day lunch, and I understand exactly what you're saying is what you need. I mean,
I'm not asking.
It ain't being able to give. You probably as bad as it's getting, you're gonna need 8. I mean, it's just gonna be. I mean, it's getting bad. It's just we just have to try to figure a number to work with now, where we can at least. We still got one more reading to be able to go to the 3rd reading. So between now and then, if we started with a number, this is not the final number, but if we're at 62.5 with how many deputies?
That's 3.
With 3 now. So I mean, I'm always a numbers guy. If the federal. If we say the federal inmates can produce another, I'm just throwing a number out there. I mean, it's another $125,000. That takes 125 out of the 56 that would pay for additional 2 deputies. I mean, that would pay for the 2 deputies. So you would have $25,000 out of the actual. I'm just saying with the 3 that we're talking about now. Then if this federal inmate thing can go, is that a set price at 60 or is it a number that can go up? I mean, we're just trying to get a number.
That's the number we can negotiate with. And we're going to negotiate to the best of our ability. I mean, Wes has been giving us some numbers that we need, and we're going to be able to sit down to the table and work.
How soon do you think you might be able to have it?
As soon as we can finish the application, I can't sit here and tell you we'll be finished in 2 days.
You've done it in February, we could have, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's hard on that,
We've been working on this since February.
I understand.
We've been working on this since February.
I think we're at least to a point where we can at least get to another, at least to the 3rd reading. So, if we're at 6.5, that's not gonna go on nobody's thing right now. With $400,000 out of reserve, that we ain't passing anything, we're just giving somebody something to work with until the 3rd reading. We may have to have another workshop, we may be able to get to it, but at least we would have something to go to and have more time to get some numbers to where.
And we'll do what we can to expedite our end. We'll put everything that we're doing on hold and just focus, if we can, on getting this application finished.
On it's important, y'all work with Wes, and I want to be involved as well. We can try to make sure we get like the one, what they need, what we need, and we can even account for it separately, so it'll be real clear that if it starts bringing in extra, there it is. It's reported, it's seen separately, so it gives the benefit to the sheriff's needs in this request. Now, just because you said you can't see it, that's 6.2, that's 3 deputies and 3 cars. 6.25 mils and $405,000 out of reserve. And one other thing I want to let y'all know that's got lost in the shuffle is that this year we've seen an increase in revenue, an increase in the money coming in before we did the roll cart thing of more than $800,000. That's more money that came in, and it had eaten every dime of it with mandated inflationary cost increases. It is a different year. So, a lot of what the pressure that's on are the needs, public safety needs, and also the fact that it's just the money's going out quicker than it come in.
But I would say, I think, Councilman Owens, if we've been operating, with 2 deputies on night shift for an extended period of time, we're really playing Russian roulette, with kind of have a brother that works in the detention center, and the stuff that has happened will horror you. God must be looking down on Marlboro County because we dodged many bullets over the last couple of years that really could have put us in a precarious position with our finances based on, additional lawsuits. So I think being proactive and looking at, but still being fiscally responsible about the process. But I do think we should take a hard look at how to make sure that there's a happy medium with this process, that we look out for the citizens, but also look out for the total optics of our county operating in the best manner.
Well, it's a compromise we got to do.
Ron, can we schedule another work session?
Yeah, this is enough.
So
for us to
we'll all
go
be
forward.
on the same page and in agreement.
I think this is, we've got some compromise to get it moving, as somebody said, and that gives them time to get some numbers to get back, if those numbers come in where it's gonna be a number, it makes it easier on this side to be able to set, and, it's at numbers, on that side, I understand, that too, I don't go with all that, but yeah, at least this gives us a number to work towards another workshop and the next thing, I think we feel.
And what I ask of you all is, every time y'all look at it and we go, we just try to take the other stuff you kind of have decided on out of it, because it's so much stuff to look at. So when we come back again, the things that we clearly, kind of figured out, we'll move those aside so you're focused on those. And I'll send you out an amended one so you can really look at that. This is enough if you want. We would suggest, since this is an agenda item, staff would request that you approve second reading, based on the worksheet, but it's all subject to change by third reading.
So moved.
Okay, so here we go. Any other questions from Mr. Mullins?
I don't have a question, but I think he made a motion until we got to that.
Yeah, second, did they have a second?
Yes, sir. Okay, all in favor? Okay, moving on to,
Thank you, sir.
Kind of like for us to start actually specific numbers from the sheriff's department, put those numbers out in front of us. Like that, we only got 3 deputies on duty tonight, 2 deputies on duty tonight. That really gives the criminal an upper hand. So try not to get so specific in public.
moving on down to ordinance 828, an ordinance to approve the capital improvement plan for Marlboro County for the period of 2023 to 2027. Second reading.
Mr. Chairman, this follows the budget, it's just a capital plan moving forward. We, every year debate whether to include it, because it's just sort of a plan, it's not really tied directly to the budget. But this year, we intend to shore it up with the budget when you get the third reading. So we ask you to approve second reading as is.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve? Motion and a second. All in favor? Moving down to item 4, new business, ordinance 829, an ordinance creating a special tax assessment for eligible rehabilitated historic properties.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Park has been involved in this, but for the sake of time, I'll just, not that Mr. Park would go long, but I'll just tell you about it. It's a thing called the Bailey Bill. The city of Evansville approached us about it. If someone were to move here and buy an old house or an old building and fix it up, it sets the value of it. Like when they start, it's worth this much, and when it gets to being renovated, it's frozen for how many years?
It would be 20 years.
For 20 years, it keeps it at that. On second reading, we can, Ms. Park can make a presentation about it, so you can hear more detail. But it's in place in almost every county, and it was brought to us by the city because they had it. And it just, would complement that. So again, this is first reading by title only. Second reading, we will have a full presentation or do whatever you want us to do.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept title only ordinance number 829.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? All right, ordinance 830, an ordinance to provide for the creation of a county road maintenance fund, the recurring imposition of a road maintenance fee, and the use of revenues collected for the road maintenance fee, and provide certain findings with respect to the road maintenance fee required by the South Carolina Supreme Court and Burns and Greenville County Council.
Mr. Chairman, you may be aware there's been some legal action, some lawsuits about fees that are charged by different counties. Marlboro County is actually in pretty good shape. Some counties charge fees for their rural fire or charge fees for their EMS. And so this case has thrown everything in confusion because the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional if you charge a fee, like for a road maintenance, and other people are using the road that aren't paying the fee, like from out of state. And so a lot of counties are having to scramble. Florence County has tens of millions of dollars at risk here. Marlboro County's situation is that we charge a $35 road maintenance fee, and that brings in around $600,000 a year. We spend around $800,000 a year on maintaining dirt roads, and there have been noticeable improvements. You've seen them, the rock program, all of that. But what's happened is some county lawyers Dimsey, who represents us on bond stuff, has done some work for the Association of Counties, and they've come up with this ordinance that would do a couple of things to make sure that what we're doing is proper and protect us from that lawsuit. One thing that is interesting, that is a good idea, I think, is it creates a separate fund. So like a lot of things we do here, and you've seen, I've been a big advocate of this, if money is for a special purpose, it needs to be in a place where it can only be used for that special purpose. And you can run the risk of that money going into something it shouldn't. This would create a fund just for that. So all the dirt road unpaved maintenance, unpaved road maintenance would come out of that. So that's one part. And the other part is it just sets out the right language for y'all to adopt to kind of ratify what you already have in place. You already passed an ordinance years ago to have that fee. This just sets it up. They haven't given us the full version yet, and we'll have that for second reading. But this is a good move legally and management-wise on how to set that up and establish that, the management of that fee process.
Any questions?
Move to approve ordinance 830. Title only.
Motion second. All in favor? I request for approval of application for USDA grant for heavy equipment.
I would ask Mr. Partners, if you don't mind,
Sure, be glad to.
to stand up and tell you real quickly about that.
The USDA has got a program, it's referred to as community facilities. It's really designed to provide funding for up to $50,000 per piece of equipment with a maximum percentage. I think in our county is going to be about a 55% match. So it's going to help us when we're looking at some of our capital expenditures, and it'll reduce the cost in order to, buy those big pieces of equipment. It's really designed to aid rural counties, and it came out of the whole coronavirus issue, and it's a part of that funding. So, anyways, the program with the USDA, I think it's going to be very beneficial for the county to apply for that grant.
And Mr. Chairman, we had money in the budget in the capital general obligation bond money about backhoe and a dump truck. And so this effectively would just give us a 45% discount. So it's a good thing.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Second. A motion and a second. All in favor? All right, moving to appointments. Board of Commission. Appointment to Susan Rivers as clerk of board.
Ms. Bundy moved on, and Ms. Rivers, who had been clerk counsel up to 2012, I believe, something like that, has agreed to resume those duties and keeping us straight and keeping the records of our meetings and all of that together. So we would request the council make that official.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we appoint Ms. Susan Rivers back to the clerk of council.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, it is now official. All right, reports, the finance report.
You have your financial report for the 10-month period that ended April 30th of 2022, the revenues total $10,485,223. In comparison with the prior year, those revenues were $10,007,090. General fund expenditures through April 30th, 2022 totaled $9,520,324 of a $12,825,594 budget, or 75.01% of budget year to date. Expenditures for the 10-month period ending April 30th, 2021 totaled $9,412,718. In summary, income is higher due to increases in state and local tax revenues, and expenditures are higher for the same period, but not as we've seen a greater increase in revenue than we have in expenditures. So I think this year we're on course to have a fairly good close. If there's any questions, go ahead and answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Administrator's report.
Mr. Chairman, as we do every month, we recognize folks with more than 5 years of service, and this year we have a handful. Shante Weldon has 5 years, Kay Liner 22, Teresa Burgess 20 years, Brian Oxidon 9, Arthur Hamer 24 years, and Amber Golden 7 years. We have the County Employee Appreciation Day this Thursday. It is Public Service Recognition Week, and in honor of all the county employees, we'll have an event Thursday from 3 to 7. People can kind of come in, kind of filter in and out, and we encourage y'all to do the same. It'll be on the grounds of the library in Murchison Building. There'll be foods, games, music, a bouncy house, and a Dunkin' booth. Well, they convinced me and the sheriff and Doug Carabo and Calvin Cassidy to get the Dunkin' booth. So, boy, there'll be a line around the block. But you got to make a donation to get there, and we'll probably, the bigger the donation, the closer you can get. With the right kind of donation, you can touch the paddle on it. So I'm prepared to be cold and wet that day. So anyway, that's going on, and that's a good thing. If you see a county employee, please thank them for the service they do. They do a good job. And the sheriff made some good points about the commitment of the folks. Economic development wise, we'll soon begin advertising for RFP for a redo of the economic development website, included in the current year, and we'll interconnect this with the county government website and include that in the scope of the RFP. Obviously, there's some things that are out of date. We need pictures of Mr. Stroman and Dr. Johnson that are on there. So it's a good time to get all that together. Spec building, if you hadn't been out there, ride out there. I was going to offer everybody if they wanted to go out after this meeting, but we've kind of been here a while. But it's all but done. It's moving right along, and we'll soon begin advertising. And we're already working on that with NISA and the Marlboro development team, the co-op's for-profit arm. They gave $150,000 toward it, so they'll help. I just want to remind everybody, this is being built to recruit people here. There's nobody already lined up for it. So it's a tool used by counties, and it's a successful tool to attract people to come here. And we would love to see some good jobs come out of that. We have a lot of available jobs in the county, but we want to have where people can have better and better jobs. That's important. As far as the administrative report, obviously we've been working hard on the budget. I want to thank everybody on my senior staff and finance staff for their effort, because we've had to jump around and try to come up with scenarios and tighten our belts and figure out where we can make this thing work. The last thing is a sore subject, the digital sign delay. There's been a delay again. Very disappointing. We've talked to the attorney and Mr. Carabo, who was talking about, do we get out of it and go somewhere else? Mr. Carabo's looked at other vendors, and it looks like everybody's got the same problem. It seems to be even worse because we've got something bigger and nicer and custom. And she's now saying, and I meant to send y'all an email, and I will, particularly Mr. Stroman, that she's trying to get it done this month.
End of the month.
But quite frankly, we found out it wasn't coming from the person that was going to install it. So we're not happy about that. And that'll play heavily on the next one too, because there's a better reference than when you're dealing with somebody directly. with the spot's ready, the electricity's run out, all we're gonna do is plant it and then do landscaping around it, so once we have it, it'll go quickly. That's all I had, I can try to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Refresh my memory, which spot is?
On Broad Street, across from Old Coal Yard, so,
Okay.
yeah, between the railroad track and Old Hamerville.
All right, thank you, Ron. We have no requests from citizens before council. Recognition of council members.
Nothing but to say, welcome back, Susan. Glad to have you back. We got, good person that, Patricia will be ready to this, but I think you finished, you quite well. Welcome back. Good.
Yeah.
Just let Councilman Strong know we're thinking of you and praying for you. Once it in the time of loss, so we're thinking we can pray for you, we're here for you if you need us. We're gonna let that be known. So Susan, welcome back. So we thank you. You know, we got into the the budget. You know, it's whenever you request something, it's always what everybody wants. And on this end, we have to make sure we try to fill those needs and try to look after the citizens, our taxpayers, and the ones that call us about this and that. So we try to be fair and balanced with it. Sometimes it gets hard. I mean, you know what you need, and then some elderly that's on fixed incomes, and it's $20 might not seem much to us, but somebody that's paying more for milk and gas and taking in less, gets them further behind and gets depressed, and so we have to be think about all that, and so hopefully we have to just make compromises and move on for the best interest of everything, and so hopefully we can continue to move forward, and maybe there's some money around that we can continue to look forward and better Marlboro County everything we do.
Again, Mr. Strowman, prayers and thoughts are with you and your family during this time, that God will grant you the strength to move forward with the days ahead. Susan, don't know you, glad to meet you, and we're looking forward to our picture being on the website, Mr. Strowman tonight. I want to thank Mr. Mullen and Mr. Carroll for their work at Wrightsville to get our playground equipment and work on the dugouts. It's good. That's the only, from my perspective, that's the only asset we have on that 38 going towards Rockingham. So we want to do our very, very best to make sure that that area is a bright spot, not only for the citizens of Wrightsville, but all those people from North Carolina that come and walk the track and experience, that area. I appreciate your work, man.
I just want to echo what everybody said. Mr. Drummond, anything I can do, just let me know. And I'm sorry for your loss. I know that it's pretty hard. And anything I can do, just ring me or let me know. And Susan, good to have you back. I know you'll do a good job. You've been with us before, so you're right at home.
Again, essentially, Mr. Sutherland, for you and your family, thinking about you. Susan, good to have you back. I'd like to commend, as y'all know, last Saturday, McCall had their first Mayfest in 3 years, and I'd like to commend Mayor George Garner, Chief Robbie Trine, Director Lynn Cubis, who directed the Mayfest Festival, Dwayne and Cindy Driggers, who were instrumental in helping everybody that day, and also Teresa Freeman and all the other people that made it a complete success. Started at 10, it ran from 10 to 4. And at 9:30, the street was full of people. And it stayed full until about 3 o'clock when a little bit of rain started moving in. But just a great event, a lot of great vendors, and it's just to be down for the last 2 years and come back with an amazing festival. Everybody that worked with that needs to be commended. Also, would like the public to hopefully view the Facebook meeting, and you'll see 7 of us up here tonight. We're working on, we're trying to help the different agencies of the county, but we also have to be cognizant of the people, that are actually suffering right now because of inflation. Gas is back over $4, and I think you'll see tonight, we want to work with the sheriff and the other departments that need funds, but we also need to put people in Marlboro County front and center. And I think you can see we all did that tonight. And we're just started the budget, and we're gonna work through it, and hopefully maybe we can get some things, and it'll work out as a compromise that's good for everybody. But, you know, right now, the people in this county are suffering, and we need to be very cognizant of them.
Councilman Spellman, we are so sorry for your loss, and stand with you, and we pray for you. Anything we can do for you. All right, is there a motion for an adjournment? All in favor? Stand adjourned.